Have you ever felt like a burden to the very people you sacrificed everything for? As if years of quiet dedication and tireless effort could somehow be erased by a single, dismissive word. That night, sitting at the dinner table, when my son's cruel words sliced through the air, "You're old and useless," I felt my entire world crumble. But then, a quiet resolve hardened inside me, and I knew I had to pull out more than just a lesson. Get ready. What you're about to hear isn't just a story. It's a raw, unfiltered journey that might just give you goosebumps. If the moments ahead stir up a knot of discomfort or a wave of profound empathy, don't keep it to yourself. Let me know in the comments below. Her story is about to begin. My life had settled into a gentle, quiet rhythm, a comfortable hum of simplicity, yet beneath its serene surface, the silent, invisible scars of a mother's unacknowledged sacrifice had long begun to ache. My name is Sarah, and at 72, the world saw me as just another elderly woman, quietly navigating the twilight of her years. My hands, though still capable, carried the soft, indelible marks of a life tirelessly lived, not in boardrooms or grand offices, but in nurturing, cleaning, and countless hours spent ensuring my children had what I never did. My days were a canvas of simple, cherished routines. The earthy scent of my small, vibrant garden as I tended to the roses, the comforting weight of a worn book in my lap, and the familiar, almost meditative hum of my modest home. I wasn't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, nor did I chase the fleeting glow of societal success. To me, true richness lay in the warmth of a sunbeam on my face, the fragrant steam from a cup of tea, and the quiet satisfaction of a life dedicated to family. I held a deep, unshakable reservoir of love and affection, a lifetime of sacrifices, both grand and minute, for my children. My own needs had always been few, my patience seemingly boundless, especially when it came to the son I adored above all else. Then there was Mark, my son. He was 38, a man who moved through the world with a sleek, polished confidence that both impressed and at times unnerved me. He was a rising star in the corporate ladder, a master of complex deals and sharp negotiations, and he measured life by milestones of material gain. The latest luxury car, the grander house, the prestigious school for his children. He carried himself with an air of self-made triumph that often bordered on arrogance, particularly when discussing financial markets or the perceived inefficiencies of anyone not operating at his relentless pace. His home, sprawling and immaculate, felt less like a family sanctuary and more like a carefully curated showroom, designed to impress. Emily, his wife, was always poised and polite, her smile practiced, her eyes often holding a flicker of quiet anxiety that mirrored my own. Their two children, Lily and Tom, were bright, energetic, and utterly oblivious to the subtle currents of tension that often hummed beneath the surface of their perfect family tableau. The relationship between Mark and me had become a delicate, almost theatrical dance around a growing void. I yearned for genuine connection, for the easy flow of conversation we once shared when he was a boy. But those moments were rare, replaced by brief, transactional updates on his demanding schedule. "I'm swamped, Mom," he'd say, or just quickly checking in. I'd offer a piece of advice, born of 72 years of navigating life's unpredictable currents, only to be met with a dismissive wave of his hand, a patronizing sigh, or a condescending explanation of "How things work now, Mom." I saw the impatience in his eyes, the almost imperceptible tensing of his jaw when I spoke of anything beyond the most superficial topics. It hurt deeply, each slight a tiny splinter in my heart, but I swallowed the pain, believing that a mother's love was meant to be endless, enduring even the sharpest edges of unreciprocated appreciation. This quiet tension, this unspoken chasm of misunderstanding, was a constant, discordant note in the background of our forced harmony, a shadow lengthening with each passing year. The stage for the inevitable confrontation was set during one of our typical Sunday dinners at Mark's spacious, meticulously decorated home. The scent of roasted chicken hung heavy in the air, mingling with the expensive aroma of his new living room furniture. The initial clinking of cutlery and polite murmurs about the weather formed a thin veneer over the underlying unease. Emily, ever the diplomat, attempted to bridge the widening gap, her kind eyes darting between Mark and me, sensing the brewing storm. The grandchildren, Lily and Tom, innocent and utterly oblivious, chattered incessantly about their school day, their pure, unburdened laughter the only genuinely joyful sound in the room. But underneath the veneer of domestic normalcy, a silent current of anticipation flowed, a feeling that tonight, this carefully constructed facade of family peace was about to shatter. This carefully balanced, yet fragile, peace would soon crumble under the weight of unspoken resentments, leading to a moment that would irrevocably alter the course of our family, exposing truths no one was prepared to face. The fragile peace, so meticulously maintained, finally shattered not with a quiet crack, but with a brutal public explosion, exposing the raw, ugly truth that had festered between us for far too long. The conversation, innocuous enough at first, drifted, as it always seemed to, towards finances and Mark's burgeoning career. He was passionately detailing the exorbitant costs of raising a family in the city, the relentless pressures of his high-stakes job, all while subtly hinting at his supposed struggles despite the clear evidence of his material success that surrounded us. I, trying to be helpful, trying to reconnect, gently suggested he look into some small, local investment opportunities I'd heard about from an old friend, or perhaps consider whether a slightly simpler lifestyle might ease his burdens. My words, meant as a loving mother's quiet concern, landed like an ill-timed accusation in the tense silence. Mark's jaw tightened imperceptibly, and a vein pulsed visibly on his temple. "Mom," he began, his voice edged with thinly veiled contempt, "with all due respect, what exactly do you know about finances these days? You live in your little house, you don't even understand the market's volatility." His dismissive tone stung, a familiar ache, but I merely sighed, accustomed to his condescension. It wasn't the dismissive tone that ignited the true fire, but the casual, brutal cruelty that followed, delivered with the thoughtless ease of flicking a switch, turning a private wound into a public humiliation. Then my sweet granddaughter, Lily, bless her innocent heart, piped up, her voice clear and unaffected by the rising tension. "Grandma," she asked, her eyes wide, "why don't you have a big car like Daddy? And why don't you go on holidays like us?" The question, so simple, so pure, hung in the air, amplified by the sudden, uncomfortable silence that fell over the table. It seemed to break something in Mark. He slammed his hand on the polished dining table, the silverware jumping with a sharp clatter. His face, usually a mask of corporate composure, contorted with a raw, unbridled rage. "Because she's old, Lily." He bellowed, his voice cracking with a terrifying instability that echoed through the stunned dining room. "And frankly, she's useless. She barely contributes anything. What good is she to anyone now? Just a drain." The words struck me like a physical blow, a vicious, unseen punch to the gut. "You're old and useless." The 7 most brutal, unforgivable words I had ever heard, spoken by my own son, the child I had dedicated my entire life to. The clatter of cutlery, the soft hum of the refrigerator, even the gentle breathing of my grandchildren seemed to cease, replaced by the deafening roar of my own shock. An oppressive silence descended upon the room, thick and suffocating, pressing down on me until I felt I couldn't breathe. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with a mix of horror and profound embarrassment. Lily and Tom looked up, confused, their innocent faces reflecting the sudden, terrifying shift in atmosphere, sensing a darkness they couldn't comprehend. My heart, which moments before had been aching with the usual dull pain of his dismissiveness, now felt as though it had shattered into a million tiny, irreparable pieces. A wave of dizzying nausea washed over me, and my vision blurred with unshed tears, each one a testament to years of suppressed pain finally breaking through. For a split second, I wanted nothing more than to disappear, to vanish from that elegant dining room, from this crushing reality. But as the initial wave of despair receded, replaced by a cold, searing clarity, something profound shifted deep within me. My trembling hands, which had gripped the edge of the table for support, slowly, deliberately relaxed. My gaze, which had been fixed on the polished wood in a desperate attempt to avoid his eyes, slowly, inexorably lifted to meet Mark's. And in that moment, a quiet, fierce resolve, colder and harder than any stone, began to solidify within my core. The shattered silence of the dining room was merely the prelude to a far greater revelation. For the very next action, born of that searing pain and newfound resolve, would expose a truth none of them had ever expected. If Mark's shocking words sent a shiver down your spine, know that this is just the beginning. The story of Sarah's resilience and the astonishing truth she's about to reveal will only grow more intense. If you're finding yourself already deeply invested, then hit that like button and subscribe to follow her full journey. Your support helps us share these powerful stories of strength and unexpected lessons. The echoes of Mark's cruel words still hung heavy in the air, a poisonous shroud over the dinner table, yet from within me, something unexpected began to stir. A calm so profound it felt alien, a quiet defiance born of shattered dreams and simmering resolve. The silence that followed Mark's outburst wasn't merely the absence of sound. It was a living, breathing entity, thick with shock and a collective shame that permeated every corner of the room. Emily, my daughter-in-law, seemed to shrink into herself, her face a mask of mortification, her gaze fixed on her plate as if willing it to swallow her whole. Lily and Tom, sensing the terrifying shift in the adult world around them, had fallen completely silent, their small hands clutching their forks, their eyes darting nervously between their father and me, unable to comprehend the venom that had just spilled forth. Mark, surprisingly, seemed momentarily deflated by his own fury, his chest heaving, his eyes still blazing but now tinged with a flicker of something that could have been surprise at his own outburst, or perhaps a fleeting, almost imperceptible hint of regret. But I felt a strange, almost chilling tranquility descend upon me. The initial crushing blow, the dizzying pain of his words, had somehow burned away the layers of hurt and suppressed emotion. There was no more sadness, no tears. Just a cold, crystal-clear understanding. My son had just spoken his truth, stripped bare of all pretense. And in that raw, exposed moment, I realized I had a truth of my own to reveal. My hands, which had been clutching the edge of the table, now moved with a deliberate, almost theatrical slowness. Every eye in the room, still wide with shock, followed my movements. I reached into the small, worn handbag I always carried, the very same one Mark had probably dismissed as old-fashioned or useless countless times. My fingers, gnarled with age but steady, found what they sought. The small, unassuming slip of paper I retrieved was no ordinary document. Its plain white surface held a secret that would unravel every preconceived notion they had about me, shattering their world just as mine had been shattered. With a calmness that utterly belied the storm raging within me, I pulled out a single, crisp piece of paper. It wasn't a grocery list, nor a wrinkled receipt. It was a check. I held it up, not dramatically, but simply, allowing the fluorescent light from the dining room chandelier to fall upon it. The numbers, bold and unmistakable, shimmered into view. $500,000. $500,000. The sound of Emily's sharp intake of breath was audible. Mark, who had just been stewing in his post-outburst silence, stiffened. His eyes, which had been avoiding mine, now snapped to the check, widening almost comically as he processed the figures. The color drained from his face, replaced by a pasty white. The air in the room, previously heavy with shame, now crackled with an entirely new kind of tension. Disbelief, confusion, and an undeniable, dawning avarice. Mark, recovering from his initial shock, leaned forward, his previous arrogance replaced by a frantic, almost desperate curiosity. "Mom, what is that? Where did you get that?" His voice was hoarse, a stark contrast to his earlier booming rage. Emily, regaining her composure slightly, echoed his question, her politeness strained, her gaze fixed on the check with an intensity that verged on hunger. I met their eyes, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. "It's just a small matter, dear," I said, my voice quiet, almost ethereal, yet each word landed with the weight of a stone. "A matter of value. You see, Mark, you just said I was useless. But usefulness, my son, comes in many forms. Sometimes, its true worth isn't apparent until it's revealed in the most unexpected ways. This, my dear children, is simply the tangible proof of a very, very long-term investment. An investment not just of money, but of something far more precious." I didn't elaborate. I just watched them, the shifting expressions on their faces, from shock to confusion, from suspicion to a rapidly growing, undeniable greed. The check, ordinary in its physical form, had become a powerful, silent weapon, turning their carefully constructed world of assumptions on its head, preparing them for a revelation that would expose the very core of who we all were. The question of the check's origin now hung heavy in the air, a silent challenge that would compel me to peel back the layers of my life, revealing sacrifices and secrets they had never once thought to consider, leading us inexorably towards a truth that would change everything. The gleaming numbers on the check, a silent, audacious challenge, now compelled me to unearth the buried layers of my past, forcing Mark to confront not just the secret of the money, but the raw, unvarnished truth of a mother's forgotten sacrifices. The air in the dining room had become thick, almost tangible, with a tension far heavier than before. Mark's eyes, fixed on the check I still held calmly, flickered with a mixture of confusion, suspicion, and a rapidly escalating, unmistakable greed. Emily, usually so composed, shifted nervously in her seat, her gaze darting between the check and her husband, clearly sensing a seismic shift in the family dynamic. Lily and Tom, bless their innocent hearts, were now completely still, sensing the gravity of the adult silence, their small hands gripping their utensils as if for comfort. Mark finally broke the quiet, his voice hoarse, strained, devoid of its earlier bravado. "Mom," he rasped, Where did you get this? What is this?" He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as if to snatch the check. I gently, deliberately, pulled the check back, just out of his reach. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips, a smile that held a lifetime of unexpressed pain and a newfound, steely resolve. "You asked, Mark, what use I was. You said I was old and useless. You questioned my understanding of the market, of value. Perhaps it's time I clarified precisely what my use has been and where my value truly lies." My voice was soft, yet it resonated with an unexpected power, holding everyone captive. I looked directly at Mark, my gaze unwavering, stripping away his false confidence. "You see this check? This isn't newfound wealth. This isn't a lottery win. This is the culmination of decades, of choices, of sacrifices you never saw, never appreciated, because you were too busy chasing your own version of success." The source of the $500,000 wasn't a clever investment or a sudden windfall, but a profound, almost unbelievable act of quiet, persistent self-denial, a direct counterpoint to every dismissive word Mark had just uttered. I began to speak, my voice gaining strength with each word, painting a picture of a life they had never bothered to truly see. "Do you remember, Mark, when you needed money for your first big business venture? The one your father said was too risky, but I believed in you." Mark's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of distant memory. "I sold grandmother's antique locket," I stated calmly, "the one that had been in our family for 5 generations. It was worth a small fortune even then, more than enough for your initial capital. You never asked where it came from." Then, I continued, my gaze sweeping over Emily, then back to Mark. "Do you recall when Emily had that unexpected medical emergency, before your insurance fully kicked in? Or when Lily needed that special tutor, and you were worried about the cost?" Emily gasped softly, her eyes filling with understanding, then tears. "Every extra hour I worked, every simple meal I ate, every new dress I didn't buy for myself, every vacation I didn't take, every single penny I meticulously saved, for decades, it went into an account. An emergency fund. Not for me, for you, for your family, for my grandchildren." My voice broke just a fraction on grandchildren, a raw display of the depth of my love and the pain of his betrayal. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a devastating truth that stripped Mark bare. His face, which had been pale with greed, now flushed a mottled red, a painful mixture of shock, shame, and a dawning, crushing realization. He tried to interrupt, Mom. I didn't know, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "This $500,000, I continued, my voice unwavering now, is the sum of those countless small sacrifices. It's the house I didn't upgrade, the comforts I denied myself, the quiet worry I carried alone, all so that you, my son, could pursue your ambitions without ever having to truly struggle like I did." I pushed the check across the polished table, letting it slide to a halt directly in front of him. "This, Mark, is what old and useless looks like when it commits its entire being to the well-being of its children." The silence returned, but this time it was different. It was a silence of profound guilt, of shattered illusions, and of suffocating shame. Mark stared at the check, then slowly, agonizingly, lifted his eyes to meet mine. All the arrogance had vanished, replaced by a raw, naked vulnerability, a look of a man who had just seen himself truly for the first time and hated what he saw. His mouth opened, but no words came out, only a choked, guttural sound. Emily, tears streaming down her face, reached across the table and covered my hand with hers, a silent apology. Lily and Tom, sensing the immense shift, had begun to cry softly, though they didn't understand why. The climax wasn't a shout or a dramatic gesture. It was the quiet, devastating power of truth, laid bare on a simple piece of paper, shattering the illusion of a family and revealing the chasm between a mother's unending love and a son's profound ignorance. The shattered fragments of that dinner table encounter would now scatter, leading each of us down separate, difficult paths of contemplation and consequence, as the weight of revealed truths settled heavy upon our hearts. The aftermath of the dinner was a chilling silence, heavier than any words, as the weight of my revelation settled over the family, splintering the carefully constructed facade they had maintained. The dinner ended not with a polite farewell, but with a stark, unbearable silence. Mark, utterly stripped of his composure, sat frozen, staring at the check, then at me, his face a landscape of conflicting emotions. Shock, shame, and a nascent, terrifying understanding. Emily, wiping tears from her eyes, quickly gathered the children, her movements swift and desperate, as if trying to shield them from the fractured reality of their family. She offered a mumbled apology, a barely audible "I'm so sorry, Sarah," before retreating with Lily and Tom, their small, confused faces echoing the shattered atmosphere. I simply watched them go, my own heart aching with a pain that mingled sorrow with a strange, quiet sense of vindication. The elegant dining room, moments ago a stage for explosive revelation, now felt desolate, hollow. I quietly placed the check back into my worn handbag, its purpose for now fulfilled. I didn't linger. There was nothing left to say. I simply rose, a silent, dignified exit from a scene I knew would forever haunt them. The days that followed were consumed by a heavy, suffocating quiet. My phone, usually busy with Emily's polite calls or Lily's cheerful chatter, remained silent. Mark didn't call. I didn't expect him to. The emotional bomb I had dropped had undoubtedly sent ripples through their perfectly ordered lives, forcing a confrontation with truths they had comfortably ignored. I imagined the difficult conversations happening behind closed doors, the arguments, the accusations, the desperate attempts to reconcile what they thought they knew about me with the undeniable evidence of the $500,000 check. I found a strange, melancholic peace in the silence. It was painful, yes, but it was also honest, a stark departure from the polite indifference I had grown accustomed to. It felt like the beginning of a genuine reckoning, painful but necessary. The silence was broken not by an apology, but by a hesitant, almost desperate plea from Emily, revealing the internal turmoil that consumed Mark and hinting at a deeper struggle than I had anticipated. A week later, Emily called. Her voice was strained, fragile, a stark contrast to her usual composed demeanor. "Sarah," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "Mark, he's not been himself. He's barely sleeping, he's quiet, almost broken." She didn't offer excuses for him, nor did she minimize his outburst. Instead, she spoke with a raw honesty that touched me. "He keeps staring at that old locket in your photo album, the one of your grandmother. He Googled antique jewelry values. He understands now, Sarah. He sees what he did." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken regret. "He doesn't know how to fix this, Mom. He's never been wrong like this before. It's tearing him apart, but he's too proud, too ashamed to reach out." Emily's call wasn't just about Mark. It was about the family, the children, and a desperate plea for understanding, for a path forward. It revealed that Mark's struggle wasn't just about the money, but about the shattering of his self-perception, forcing him to confront the chasm between his values and mine. I listened quietly, a complicated mix of emotions swirling within me. Part of me felt a cold satisfaction that he was finally facing the consequences of his words. Another part, the mother in me, felt a pang of sorrow for his distress, even self-inflicted. I didn't offer immediate solutions, nor did I sugarcoat the depth of his transgression. "Emily," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "some lessons, painful as they are, must be learned on one's own. He needs to truly understand what he said, what he did. Not just about the money, but about the years. When he's ready to see more than just the dollar signs, when he's ready to truly apologize, he'll know how to find me." My response was not unforgiving, but it set a clear boundary, requiring genuine remorse, not just a desperate attempt to mend a broken image or a desire for the revealed wealth. The ball was now in Mark's court, a heavy burden for him to carry, the first true step on what would be a long, arduous path toward genuine redemption. The shattered remnants of our family dinner hung in the air, a constant, unspoken challenge. While the check had served its purpose, the true value of its revelation lay not in its monetary sum, but in the difficult, necessary journey towards genuine humility and understanding that now lay before my son, and perhaps a quiet, fragile reconciliation for us all. The bitter seed planted that night at the dinner table slowly, agonizingly, began its transformation, promising either genuine understanding or the painful confirmation of a bond forever broken. The weeks that followed Emily's hesitant call were a crucible for our fractured family. Mark, humbled and stripped bare of his corporate arrogance, found himself adrift in a sea of his own making. He tried to call, haltingly at first, his words clumsy, filled with shame. I didn't make it easy for him. My silence, not of anger but of expectation, spoke volumes. I needed more than just words. I needed genuine understanding, a true reckoning with the years of dismissiveness and that one unforgivable outburst. He eventually drove to my small house, standing awkwardly on my porch, a stark contrast to his usual confident demeanor. He looked thinner, his eyes tired, but there was a new vulnerability in them, a raw humility I hadn't seen in decades. He confessed, haltingly, how the knowledge of the locket, the realization of my quiet sacrifices, had shattered his perception of himself, forcing him to confront his own shallow pursuit of material wealth. The true test of Mark's change wasn't his apology, but his response to the ultimate decision I made about the very money that had brought us to this precipice. "Mom," he finally choked out, his voice thick with emotion, I was blind, I was cruel, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you. I only saw what I thought you weren't." He spoke not of the money directly, but of the values it represented, of the years he had taken for granted. And that was when I knew. This wasn't about the $500,000 anymore. It was about something far more valuable. I looked at my son, truly looked at him, and saw a glimmer of the boy I had raised, now scarred but perhaps, finally, truly grown. The check, still tucked safely in my handbag, represented a choice. I could have held on to it, a symbol of my independence, a quiet triumph. Or I could use it as the ultimate lesson. "Mark," I said, my voice soft, "that money. It's not for me. It was always for your future, for your children's future. It's for Lily and Tom's education, for their security, so they never have to doubt the value of love over material gain. I handed him the check, not as a gift, but as a burden of immense responsibility, a tangible manifestation of the lesson he had so brutally received. Use it wisely, I told him, and teach your children the true meaning of value. Not just what you can earn, but what you can sacrifice, what you can build with love, and how precious those quiet, unseen contributions truly are. The relationship between Mark and me didn't instantly revert to the carefree bond of his childhood. The scars of his words, of my years of silent hurt, remained, but a fundamental shift had occurred. Mark became more attentive, more genuinely engaged. He began visiting my garden, not just to check in, but to share stories, to listen. He brought Lily and Tom over more often, encouraging them to help me with my roses, to listen to my quiet tales, fostering a connection he had once dismissed as useless. The $500,000 was indeed placed into a trust for the grandchildren, a silent, powerful reminder of the lesson learned that night. I saw the change not just in his words, but in his actions, in the way he looked at me with respect, with understanding, and finally, with true affection. My own life, while still simple, was now infused with a profound sense of peace and vindication. I hadn't become useful by his standards of wealth or career, but I had revealed a value far greater than any financial sum. I had lived a life of quiet dignity, of unwavering maternal love, and in doing so had taught my son a lesson that no amount of money could buy. I continued to tend my garden, read my books, and cherish my grandchildren, but now there was a lightness in my step, a quiet triumph in my heart. The check was merely a catalyst, a dramatic prop in a family drama, but the true treasure was the rekindled connection, the unspoken understanding, and the quiet, profound respect I had finally earned from the very person who had once dared to call me old and useless. Eleanor's story isn't just a tale of survival. It's a profound echo from the past, reminding us that the foundations of our present often rest on silent battles fought by those who came before us. As the teller of this story, one cannot help but be profoundly moved by Sarah's journey, stretching from quiet dedication to a moment of startling revelation. It is a testament not just to her individual resilience, but to a profound truth that often gets lost in our fast-paced world. The immeasurable value of quiet sacrifice. It forces us to confront a poignant reality that behind the comforting figures of our parents and grandparents, there often lie untold narratives, silent battles fought with an unimaginable courage. These are the struggles that truly paved the way for the freedoms and securities many of us now experience. Sarah's life serves as a vivid, compelling reminder that true worth isn't measured in outward success or immediate utility, but in the enduring power of love, the wisdom gained through hardship, and the quiet, often unseen contributions that shape generations. Her story compels us, the listeners, to look beyond the surface, to appreciate the profound sacrifices made, and to truly acknowledge the incredible, often unseen strength that can emerge even from the darkest corners of despair. It is a narrative that demands our attention, urging us to remember the true meaning of value. As we reflect on Sarah's extraordinary path and the profound lessons it offers, her legacy extends beyond mere personal triumph, quietly urging us to consider our own roles in fostering understanding and respect within our own families and communities. Sarah's courage transformed a moment of humiliation into a powerful lesson for her son, and her story now empowers us to reflect on our own relationships and the values we truly prioritize. Sarah's unforgettable experience reminds us of the delicate balance in family relationships and the unseen sacrifices made by those who love us most. It challenges us to look beyond surface appearances and consider the deeper contributions of our loved ones. Have we truly listened? Have we recognized their quiet efforts? If this story has resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on the people in your life who might feel overlooked or unappreciated. A simple conversation, a gesture of gratitude, or a moment of true listening can bridge divides and heal old wounds. Let Sarah's story inspire us all to foster deeper empathy and respect within our own families, ensuring that no one is ever made to feel old and useless, but rather cherished for the invaluable wisdom and love they bring. Consider reaching out to a parent or an elderly family member today. Your small act of recognition could mean the world.